Wrestle Magic Pod, official sponsors of British Empire Wrestling.
All right, everyone. Tonight's episode of Wrestle Magic, we have another very special guest. Today, we have Mr. D'Lo Brown, former Intercontinental Champion and European Champion from the WWF. And King Scully and I are going to be interviewing him for about an hour tonight. So, Mr. Brown, how you doing? What's going on in your life currently?
I am doing absolutely amazing. Thank you for having me on tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Let's chop it up and talk some wrestling. That's the fun part about life, isn't it?
Absolutely. We all kind of love looking at, just the fantasy of wrestling and just, what could have been, what is, and it's always just so much fun to look at. And, I really enjoyed watching some of your matches a little bit after growing up, I would say, just because I would say your prime, that's about when I was born, unfortunately, because
okay, it's okay. I'm old. It's okay. Don't worry. I'm old.
Not trying to make you feel old or anything, but timing. But so I did want to start off asking you about, so where does it all begin for you? So your youth and everything, what was your childhood like?
Grew up in a small little country town in New Jersey called Burlington Township, and there wasn't much to do other than play sports or get in trouble. And then it was, I fell in love with wrestling because it was in America. We have this weird time of the sports calendar where it's after basketball and hockey ends, and it's just baseball for feels like forever, but it's about 4 months. And I'm not the biggest baseball guy, so I'm flicking around bored. And I stumble across wrestling, and I'm in the 9, 10, 11-year-old age bracket. And I was like, and I remember seeing these two guys just fighting and punching. And I remember yelling at my grandmother, "Hey, Grandma, I found real wrestling." And she laughed at me because she didn't like wrestling. And I sat down and just was enamored and swept up with wrestling from that point forward.
Awesome. So who were some of your favorites growing up then? I got to ask.
I mean, I had guys that I was never the flashy guys. Like I didn't like the Flairs and Hogans. I liked more of the Arn Andersons or the Road Warriors, the Dusty Rhodes or the, Magnum TAs. Like, not the flashy guys, but just as I later found out when I got into wrestling, it was those grunt worker types, the guys who just went and did their job and made everyone else look really good. Those are the ones I matriculated to. I guess the flashiest guy I ever liked was like the Great Muta as a youngster. Like, he was the flashy one because he did the mist and had the face paint, but everyone else was just hardworking. Let's go entertain.
Heck yeah, man. I mean, it sounds like you were really into the workhorses, the guys who are Intercontinental champs all the time and all that,
The Intercontinental Championship was the belt for me. Like the U.S. title was the belt for me in down in the NWA. It wasn't the top belt. It was the belt that everyone had to really work for. The world title was reserved for the guy who was on top of the marquee, who was wearing the suit, and that dude. I wanted that Intercontinental level guy. That was my wheelhouse right there.
Oh, of course. It's funny because I've spoke with my uncle, who's usually on the show, the Gardener, and he always says that was his favorite title as well because that was the workhorse title. That was for the hardest working guys. That was for, the technical wrestlers. That was for the guys who really made matches look good all the time. It wasn't for the guy that's always selling all the most merch, but it is for that guy who knows what he's doing.
Those were for the guys who made you believe there was a fight going on. Mm-hmm. And those are the belts. Those are the ones the matches I always thought got the best reaction, other than the fan reaction of the yelling and screaming and ooh and ah over the Hogans or the Flairs. But when it came to like actual work, those were the guys I wanted to be.
Of course, absolutely, and that's a great outlook to have. So, it makes me also want to ask you. So, when did you actually start training and deciding, okay, this is what I want to be?
Well, it wasn't until after I left college. I graduated college and I went to go work in New York City. And being, from Jersey, I had friends who were still 90 miles away south. So on weekends, I would drive back down. And then I found that they were still backyarding because, we were backyarders up until I went away to college, and then they were still doing it. So I was like, hey, I'm bored at work. Let's play around. So we used to rent Larry Sharp's ring once a month. And put on our own pay-per-views. And I say put on our pay-per-views, we had a camcorder and We had belts made of, paper mache or whatever, and we put on our own show. So one day Larry decided to stick around and, see this free money he was getting. And he saw me there. And at the time I'm damn near 400 pounds. And so he sees me wrestle and he goes, "Hey man, you ever think about doing this for real?" And my first thought was, "Really? For me? Oh, okay. And he goes, "All right. If you sell 50 tickets, you can be on my next show." So I sold 4, bought the other 46 myself, and that's how I got into wrestling.
Fair enough. So
it was the greatest $460 investment I ever made myself.
Heck yeah. Sounds like it definitely worked out. But something else that my uncle had actually brought up to me when telling him we were going to have you on the show, he had said you worked with somebody named Reckless Youth for a while and you guys were good
Absolutely.
friends.
That was one of my backyard friends, Tom Carter. He and I are high school mates. We went all to high school together, and he's really the reason that I really got into wrestling, because he was into wrestling, and you want to be like your friend. Mm-hmm. And so when I found it on TV, I'm like, "Oh, okay, we'll watch." And Tommy is my boy, and Tommy was a high flyer before people knew how to catch high flyers. So it didn't work out well health wise. Imagine coming up the top rope and someone not knowing how to catch you. Now, if you'd have taken Reckless Youth and put him 6-7 years into the future, oh my goodness, he would have tore the business apart. But yeah, it's my high school best friend. I talk to Tommy all the time, and yes, without him, I wouldn't be here.
Okay, fair enough. So definitely a good connection there with Tommy. But so I do want to pass the mic over to Scully and, let him take over for a little bit because I don't want to hog the whole show. Scully, go for it, buddy. What do you got for Mr. Brown?
Yeah, so obviously we've done your childhood. We've seen how you got into wrestling. And then I believe, I could be wrong, was your first match you were called Ace the Animal? Is that right?
You are correct, my friend. It was Ace the Animal against a guy named Dave Dutch. And I can remember every aspect of it. We went like 12 minutes or 15 minutes and went to a no contest. And yes, that was my first match ever at the Monster Factory.
Yeah, did you think of that name yourself, Ace the Animal?
Yes, because Ace the Animal, Ace was my high school nickname, and Animal was just, I like the cartoon character, the Animal. So there it was, Ace the Animal, and that's kind of how I played football. So that was the dude that was my vision at that point, and how creative I was. I came up with Ace the Animal. Not very an original name, but it worked.
Nah, to be fair, it sounds quite good, doesn't it? It's a bit like George the Animal, but Ace the Animal.
It works. I wish I'd have had, I should have done like George the Animal Steel. I should have had Ace the Animal something. But
yeah,
in hindsight,
Yeah, and then am I right in, I think when you went to the WWF was your first match against Earthquake?
In fact, I did. It was enhanced match. Before I wrestled there full time, I was doing, I was the guy whose contracts come in, the guy who's in the ring when the cameras come up and someone else's music's playing. That was me. And that was Ace the Animal. Yes, it was. Earthquake was one of my first matches. And that match literally taught me how to treat other wrestlers in the ring going forward, because Earthquake couldn't have been nicer to me. There was one point where I hit the ropes, and I was still very, very, very green in terms of wrestling. And I hit the ropes, and my foot got caught on the ring apron, and I came off stumbling, and he clotheslined me in the side of my head. And I crumbled down, and he gets on top of me, he goes, "Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm sorry. I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, this is Earthquake. Why is he apologizing to me? And he picked me and goes, "All right, we'll try it again." And then he gets in the back and he apologizes and goes, "I didn't mean to hit you in the head." And years later, I told him the story that was the foundation of me treating everyone as an equal and not thinking of a hierarchy in wrestling. Everyone is doing the same job. And because of him, it really laid the foundation for how I was as a professional.
Yeah, because he was, I heard he was quite a nice guy. Obviously, I never knew him.
Yes.
And I know that, like, for a big guy, he was quite underrated, I would say. Like, he didn't get...
I mean, if you think about this, he was a legit sumo wrestler. Like, legit, what Japan and was moving up the rankings. So you've got to be athletic as heck to do that, right? But he had just the nicest demeanor in the world. And inside the ring, he was so smooth. And yes, totally underrated. People just see him and they saw the earthquake gimmick and go like, oh, cartoon caricature. But no, that man could wrestle. He could go.
Yeah, because obviously when I grew up, I remember having the wrestling figures, Earthquake and Typhoon. Because I had all those. Was it Hasbro who made all those ones?
Yeah, Hasbro was, yes.
Yeah. And I remember having them. And I also remember like he feuded with like Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior and all that. But yeah, I always thought it was a good.
One of the cool things I remember, I think it was with Jake the Snake Roberts, and he squashed Damien. He jumped around to the earthquake and sat on Damien, and that was one of those things I remembered. So yes, he's tremendous. He does not get the respect he deserves. So we need to throw our flowers at John Tenta.
Yeah, definitely. And then you did, was it Smoky
Mountain Wrestling? That was That was Jim Cornette's promotion down in Morristown, Tennessee, Morristown, Knoxville. And that's really where I got my introduction. And I tell everybody that's where I got my college degree in wrestling, was being in Smoky Mountain, because I was in such a great locker room. Imagine learning tag team wrestling from the Rock and Roll Express, or how to do promos and TV from Jim Cornette, or, the fundamentals of wrestling from the Armstrong brothers and Bob Armstrong himself. So it was really a place of higher learning, and it's just an amazing locker room to be in. I remember Cornette saying to me, when I first got there, he goes, if you can't learn in this locker room, that's a you problem. And that's a statement I've used for the rest of my life, that if you can't learn in this situation, that's a you problem. And it's true. I had no choice but to learn in that locker room.
Oh, of course.
I don't want to hog the mic, but I just got to ask about the beginning of the Nation, because I wasn't really a fan of the Nation at the beginning, when you had Savio Vega and Crush and obviously Farouk, and you had Clarence, and I can't remember the other little. There was PG-13, the two rappers that were there. It was Savio, Crush, Ron. I think that was the original. Oh, and a bunch of Clarence Mason's fraternity brothers. That was the original. Yeah,
all
and
the
you
guys
was
wearing suits.
You was there then, wasn't you, around that?
I didn't come in, and they were there for about 3 or 4 months, because I think the Nation was formed in like September, October of '96, and I came in January of '97.
Yeah, that's right. And then I remember when he fired everyone, but you got there.
And that was one of the coolest moments, because they were going to bring the Nation down in size, because there's 5 guys who are wrestlers and there's 15 guys wearing suits. That's a big payoff for one act. And so they whittle it down to just me, because I was the one who was an active wrestler. All the other guys were just Clarence Mason's fraternity brothers. So none of them were trained wrestlers. And then Ron Simmons really took a liking to me. So he wanted me under his wing. So that's why I got to stay in the Nation. And I'm eternally grateful for that, because again, if Smoky Mountain's where I got my college education, Ron Simmons is where I got my PhD. Like, that's where I got that next level learning, is being under him, and, driving in the car for 6 hours and him telling me everything I did wrong and right, and listen to his road story. So yeah, that's what really, really got me going.
I'll pass it to Mav.
All right. Appreciate it, man. You could have kept going, man. I don't mind, but appreciate it either way. So speaking of the Nation, last year I actually went to the For the Love of Wrestling convention, which was over I believe, Manchester, UK. And
Manchester,
I got to see all 4 of the members of the Nation that were very prominent, between you, Mark Henry, Ron Simmons, and The Godfather. You guys were all just sitting in that row. And I thought it was so cool being able to walk up in the line and see you guys were like yelling to each other about like whatever. And then every once in a while I'd be like, I'd see like The Godfather sitting there, fan asked him a question like, hang on one second. Yo, D-Lo, get over here a second. Hey, you remember this, and that? And then you guys are all just talking and everything. I thought it was the coolest thing. And your guys' Q&A, awesome. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and felt a real connection there. Did you guys feel that connection the entire time, or did you guys have to build up to it?
From minute one. We all were in it when we finally got paired together and put together. We were all in it to make sure that we did the best job we could. And what makes it so special, we were all friends on the other side of the camera. So when you get in front of the camera, it's easy to do stuff with your friends, with your boys. You're just out there clowning around having fun. And we've always had that connection. So all the stuff you've ever seen us do in the ring, just imagine us an hour later in the hotel laughing our asses off that we can't believe we're getting to do this. And it's one of those things where we have this, like, even right now, I'll show you, we have a nation chat group in our text chain. And it says the nation chat group. And we'll get on there and just, chop it up for no reason. Like, we legit love each other. We're family. We're brothers. And that was instant. That's kind of how Ron ran things. Like, we were all this in together, and it wasn't about one guy getting over. It was about the whole nation getting over. And when one guy elevated up, we all rallied behind that guy. And there was no jealousy in the nation. There was no backstabbing. It was just having fun and enjoying wrestling. And that was the cool thing about the nation. And you can ask any of the boys, they'll say the exact same thing.
Absolutely. And you guys seemed very tight just being up there. And, it was really cool just to see how genuine the connection was between all you guys. And I remember I went up specifically to you to get your autograph at one point. And I remember we talked a little bit about this show. It wasn't really as far as it is now. But I remember you said, well, maybe give me your email. We can talk about it and everything. I was like, okay, cool. So I start writing it down. My hand's shaking because I'm a little nervous. Also, I had low blood sugar because I hadn't eaten that day and stuff. And I even said, like, oh, man, I'm shaking, writing this, like, horribly. And you're like, nah, man, don't be nervous. I don't bite or anything. And then all of a sudden.
And that's.
Yeah, you want to say your next line?
That's usually where I say, I don't bite. That costs extra. And that usually breaks the ice around people. And it's like, okay, we can relax because they're just normal dudes like us who happen to have a job on TV. That's it.
Oh, absolutely. But then I remember getting a little bit of a laugh out of it because whoever the assistant was or whoever they were behind you said something about feet. I can't remember what it was, but I remember immediately you just started like, nah, man, I don't do feet. No.
I don't do feet. I said this off camera. I'll say it to you now. I don't understand the attraction. I get it. There's some people out there who like feet. I'm not Tony Atlas. I don't like feet. I don't see the attraction in them. I don't even want to touch my own feet. So I don't get it.
Yeah, same here. But it was just so funny to me that I'm like, all right, I walked up for an autograph. I figured out D'Lo Brown does not like feet. Okay.
Yeah, you got life lessons. You went for an autograph, you got life lessons. See, that's wrestling.
That's some truth right there. But yeah, I just remember that was one of those things I walked away with and just thought, worth it. No regrets about this at all. But so going back to Smoky Mountain, because, side story over. But I remember seeing things about you had worked with New Jack as his security guard. How was that experience for you?
Crazy because, once again, as a guy growing up in the Northeast, I never really got to experience the full brunt of Southern hospitality, if I'll put it that way. And so it was a bit of a reality check when I came down, but Jack grew up in Atlanta, so he was another one who goes, okay, let me show you the ways of the world down here. And Jack was unapologetic. His job was to make people mad at him, and he reveled in it. I've said this before that if you gave New Jack an open mic in 5 minutes, said go be a heel, Jack could cut a promo, and the next music could be the devil walking out, and the people would cheer for the devil because that's how good of a heel promo New Jack was. And he's another one who people get caught up in his antics of, being the guy hit you with a trash can, but he was one of the most gifted talkers I've ever been around in wrestling.
Oh, totally agree. He was an amazing heel, and everybody has nothing but good things to say about that specifically. Some of the other things that happened, it is what it is, but you can't take away from the worker and what he was able to do.
Yeah, you look. You got to separate New Jack from Jerome Young, and Jerome Young is a class individual. New Jack can be a little crazy. New Jack could be a little crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all know about all the incidents and everything. We don't need to necessarily get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But so how did that start? And what was the conversation like when you were told, hey, you know, you're going to be working like a security guard sort of thing for now with the Gangstas?
So when I went down the Smoky Mountain, I had a dark match, an audition match. And I had an opening match where I opened the match and I'm wrestling as Ace the Animal. And then Cornette goes, I think I might have an opportunity for you. And he introduced me to New Jack. And he goes, we're going to put you with him and Mustafa, and you're going to be like his head of security. You're going to be the heavy guy. You're going to be the guy who does a little, damage to other people. And so I started the show off with Ace the Animal and ended the night as D'Lo Brown. And I went from being wannabe upstart young wrestler to a member of the Gangstas in a 3-hour span. So that was pretty cool. And that's where my journey started off. I owe everything to Jack, who saw me wrestle in the dark match, and to Cornette for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, it's gone well. I feel like you've definitely done well with your career overall. And I do want to bring up a couple of matches that I did get to watch before all of this started. I did get to watch, actually one of the matches that I enjoyed was your match with Test. I don't like Test very much, but for some reason, the match that you had with him, I was thoroughly impressed, and I enjoyed your character work at that point, kind of going more the heel route. And what was that like at that point, wrestling Test and just being in that position?
Test was a strong, just strong athlete, and he was as good as wrestler as he's gonna be, and I say nothing bad about him. Just he wasn't the smoothest dude in the ring. And I prided myself on being able to have a match with anybody at any time, anywhere. That goes back to the grunt worker guys that I liked, who fought for the Intercontinental title, who fought for the U.S. title. Those guys could have matches with a broom. And I wanted to be so good I could have a match with anybody. And that was the position I was put in, was to go get a good match at a Test. Okay, let's go have some fun. And that was my measuring stick. Like, that's how you grow your credibility in the locker room, is being that good of a worker, that smooth guy who can go out there. And so I took it as a challenge, and Tess and I went out there, and we had several really good matches together. And I take pride in the fact that we could have good matches and go out there and entertain. And no one goes, well, Tess is not that great. While he was in there with me, everybody thought Tess was amazing.
Agreed. And that's why I bring it up, is because, not a fan of the guy. I didn't think he was a great worker by any means. I'm not trying to talk down on the man. But,
no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But you were able to pull something great out of him and make a good match out of it. And that's something that I believe Intercontinental champions and that realm of workers is underrated. And those are the ones that we need to elevate more in the business.
Absolutely. It's that level worker right there. And I'm one of hundreds. I'm one of hundreds that are that good, that can elevate and make someone else look good. And when you can pull a match out of anybody, it gains you credibility in the locker room. It gains you notoriety in the locker room. And most guys want to come work with you because they know they're going to try to make you look good. You're going to try to make them look good. And that's how we all connect with the crowd, is having great matches. So I take great pride in the ability to have a great match.
So I also did watch a couple of different matches. One was with Jeff Jarrett, and I thought, this isn't bad either. I'm not the biggest fan of Jarrett, but I can enjoy some of his matches and everything. And then Val Venus, I thought that was an interesting one from SummerSlam 98, I want to say.
SummerSlam 98, we opened a show, Madison Square Garden. That was that was a good match. Like, it was one of our favorite matches, and it was given the circumstance. It had two young kids opening up the show, and at that time, it was probably one of the most influential pay-per-views in WWF at the time history. It was Steve Austin, Undertaker on top. We're doing a pay-per-view at Madison Square Garden. Like, the world is now watching, and this is we're really starting Attitude. We're starting the Attitude Era, and this is one of those kickoff matches that really helped set the bar for the rest of the show. And Val and I went out there and tore it up, and then it was in a prideful way, in a good way. now everybody else follow that. And yeah, that's how you set the bar. And yeah, it's one of our, you can ask Val, it's one of our favorite matches individually and collectively, given everything that it meant.
Absolutely. And starting off with a great pop-off, that is the best way to have a pay-per-view, because at that point, you want everybody else to try to top you. And then it creates just a magical pay-per-view at that point, because everybody else wants to try to outdo you, and they're putting their best into the ring. It's one of those things that you just want to see. And I think Scully is back. So, hey, buddy, want to take the mic over?
Yeah. So let's go to the Nation when you had, obviously, you, Farouk, Karma, and Mark Henry, and then The Rock joined.
Yes.
He was very cocky and arrogant. And I will say this right now, he is my favorite all-time wrestler. So this is where I first started liking him. Obviously, this sort of heel character that. And earlier you said you never turned your back on anyone, but I just wanted to say you turned your back on Farouk.
Yeah, yes, we did. Yes, we did. But I've made up for it over the time, and he's forgiven me. He's forgiven me. I apologize profusely. Trust me.
Yeah. But my question was, when The Rock first came, like when he joined the Nation, did you know that he was going to get that big? Basically,
I think if anyone really says they knew, you don't really know if someone's going to connect at that level with the people. But what you did know, and what I did see, was Rocky's work ethic and his drive to be better. And, if you remember back when Rocky joined the Nation, he had just come off an injury, and that was the failed, poofy hair Rocky Maivia, the babyface run, where no one really got with him. And for him, and he'll even tell you that being the Nation kind of gave him cover to learn who he was. So while he's experimenting, trying to figure out who he is, the rest of us are doing our thing, and we're kind of a shield for everybody. So as we're all trying to experiment and learn and find our own characters, you're not out there by yourself floundering in the middle of the ring alone. You've got 3 or 4 other guys protecting you, doing other stuff, distracting from the fact that I don't have it quite down yet. But once he honed it in and got who The Rock was, and I distinctly remember that day he came out on stage and he fronted Steve Austin for the first time, and that's the first night he coined himself The Rock. And I looked at him, I was like, that boy's got it now. It's there. It's a level I'm not at, and I can see it. And I'm willing to be man enough to admit it. Like that's special. That's next level. And then from there, The Rock took off, and that's when him and Austin went off on their first feud for the IC title, and really both of them blew up from that. So, yeah, to say at first you thought he was going to be the biggest star in wrestling, no, there's no way. And I don't say that negatively. I just say that you can't predict that. But man, I had the best seat in the house to watch the best run ever from a wrestler, and that was cool.
Is he in your Nation group?
He is not in this Nation group, because he keeps changing his damn number.
Yeah. Yeah, because the thing that annoyed me with that IC run was obviously you had you boys, and he's fighting Austin, and Austin was beating all of you, and I was like, as if this one guy could beat these. It was so annoying.
Austin was a superhero, though, and you gotta help elevate him up, and it helped us all out in the long run. But yeah, it was a bit much at first, but hey, it's what you had to do.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it anyway. I want to speak about you, your theme music. Because obviously that is class. I did send them a voice message earlier. I'm not going to do it on here, but I was impersonating it. And then obviously you had your swagger walk, and you had your
the head shake.
The head shake, yes, sir.
How did all this come? Like,
okay, so the head shake came from a movie. If you ever seen the movie Friday, there's a scene in Friday where Redbone comes up and asks for his bike back from Debo, and Debo goes, all right, I'll show it to you, and he uppercuts him. And Chris Tucker gets over top and he goes, "You just got knocked out." So that was like one of the mainstay movies we'd always have in our little DVD sleeve that we take everywhere. And so there was one night on Raw, Rocky was wrestling Ken Shamrock, and we're getting ready to go to commercial break because Rocky had clotheslined Ken Shamrock over the top rope. And I could hear Jim Ross behind me pitching to the break. I could hear him going, "Oh my goodness, Ken Shamrock's trouble," or whatever. And "We'll be right back." So as I hear him doing that, I see the camera and something, my instinct just kicked in. I went up to Ken Shamrock and go, "He just got knocked out." And that's the first time I did that head shake. Yes, I thank Chris Tucker for it, by the way. And so I did it, and it connected with Vince, and I kept doing it. And from there, it evolved to, well, if someone likes it, I'm going to turn the volume up on it. So the head shake turned into the strut. And then Jim Johnson came up with the music for Mark and I. That was my music was originally supposed to be a tag team theme for Mark and I. But then Mark went his own way, and then I got to keep the music. And then it got pared down to my music. And that music is to me, it's iconic, it's class, it's cool. Like you could play it today and it sounds like a song that's on the radio today. So it's one of those deals. Jim Johnson has this amazing ability to see a talent and literally craft the music to the person's charisma, persona. I mean, if you go back to that Attitude Time, everyone had that music where you knew who it was. The second you heard those first two chords, you knew who was coming out. And that's a lot different than music is today, where it's more generic, and you got to wait for the guy to come out or the girl to come out before you realize who it is. Back then, it was "If You Smell," "Are You Ready," "Break of Glass," Undertaker Dong. Like you knew who was coming out, and those musics connected to the talent, and that's one of those things that I think bonds a wrestler to the fans. That if people like their whole package, their music, their look, their wrestling, that's what draws people in.
I'm glad you said that, because one of our co-hosts said on a show which we've just put out on Unsung Heroes that Jim Johnson is an unsung hero.
Jim Johnson deserves not a spot in the Hall of Fame. Jim Johnson deserves a whole wing in the Hall of Fame. He's the soundtrack to our youth. He is the soundtrack to the sport and entertainment that we love. And without him, there are guys who don't connect because they don't have that instant music that you hear. You go, "Oh my goodness, here comes Ultimate Warrior. Oh my goodness, here comes Hulk Hogan," or, "Here comes The Undertaker." You don't have that. And before Jim Johnson, music was just generic. They stole off the radio. And after it, you had themes. You had actual themes for people. So yeah, Jim Johnson is an unsung hero in many people's minds, inside and outside of the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Totally agree. And it is amazing to see how much that he has shaped somewhat of our perception of wrestlers and stuff with, well, their character matched the theme music that came out with them every single time. Yep. Very, very well. So totally agree. And I did kind of want to go back a little bit and just ask, so training at the Monster Factory, what was that like for you?
It was cool because you don't realize the people you're around until they become somebody. So in my class I was being trained by the Headbangers. Chris Candido was back and forth between Tennessee and Jersey. Sonny was around. So, I had guys there that were going to go on to become, legendary and going to become great wrestlers. And these are the guys who were helped training me. So it was Larry Sharp instilled a work ethic where it was, we play games in the ring, but you better do your work to be able to be good enough to play games in the ring. And the work matters the most when no one is watching, when no one is buying a ticket. That's when the work matters the most. And because of that foundation, it allowed me to go to Tennessee and allowed me to move up the ranks, and it allowed me to grow because I was always willing to work harder. I was willing to work harder than anybody else in my mind because I wanted to succeed.
If you keep pushing, you will always be above everybody else that's going to have any kind of weakness or any thought about, am I really right for this? You have to make yourself right for it.
Here's a statement you'll never hear he failed because he worked hard. You'll never hear that statement in any life. He failed at what he's doing because he worked hard. That doesn't happen. But if you work hard, success will soon follow.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And I do love hearing just the simple fact of hard work does pay off. That's just life. And on top of that, also, so sounds like you had a lot of respect for Larry Sharp. I was going to ask, how was your relationship with him back then as well?
It was great because, he was a Northeast legend. Like when I would go to shows at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, he was on the show. And, he really wasn't a lot on TV, but whenever he did, WWF did local Northeast runs, he'd be doing the show. So I had a lot of respect for him because I've seen him in the ring wrestle and I've seen him work. So it's a little different when you have someone sitting behind a desk who's telling you, I can teach you how to wrestle, or you've seen this guy actually go out there and do it and he's capable of doing it. And it's like, okay, it's like a driver's ed teacher. He can drive a car, so you're going to listen to him. And when Larry's telling me to do A, B, or C, there's no question because I've seen him do A, B, or C, and I know he's going to put me in a position to succeed. And thirdly, with that is, I knew Larry was going to give us the best foundation to teach and go out in the world because we were his calling card out in the wrestling world. Long before the internet, long before word of mouth, the only way a wrestling school was advertised was by the students it put out. So the better class of student was out there, the more better his school did. So he doesn't want his name on me and I'm out there, really stinking in the ring. He wants people who are class. And so when he put time and effort into you, he knew he thought you had the best position to go out there and do well in the business.
Oh, absolutely. And something that, if I remember correctly, I believe other students of Monster Factory would be guys like Raven, Bam Bam Bigelow, if I remember correctly,
yes,
and other just great stars like that. So
the Monster Factory was the preeminent school that guys went through to get to the next level. And this is a time when it was very hard to get into wrestling. Like you had to earn your way into a school. And then you had to earn your way to stay in the school. And long before you would get pushed out into the world, you had to keep showing improvement. So yeah, like tons and tons of guys like Damien Demento and Godfather went through there, and Big Show went through there. Tons of guys went through the Monster Factory. I remember seeing Larry Sharp's wall of graduates, and it was like it's a who's who of what the WWF was at that point, or even, and not, it was George Championship Wrestling would become WCW. It was a who's who of the major companies. So I knew I was in the right place because he had touched so many guys who had become somebody.
Oh, definitely. He made legends out of his school.
Yeah.
And speaking of somebody else who also made a lot of legends, I did want to ask next about more Smoky Mountain, but how was your relationship with Jim Cornette as well? Because obviously he's a very prominent figure in the wrestling business.
Till this day, I consider Jim one of my very close personal friends. I talk to him and his wife on the regular. I will text him and just ask him questions about his wrestling journey. And I got such a great, and I feel like I'm throwing roses at everybody. I got such a great foundation from him, and he took the time for a young green kid to teach me when he didn't have to. And if you look at it, Smoky Mountain was the original developmental territory. Because long before there's developmental territory, there's a who's who of. I'll give you this. I lived in a place called the Smoky Mountain Flophouse. Okay, here's where the guys that lived in this house, the names: New Jack Mustafa, Chris Jericho, Lance Storm, Young Kane, Balls Mahoney. These are the guys who all lived in one house at one time. So it was we were the next class of guys coming up, and it's all because Cornette had that vision to see the talent and then to polish that talent up and give us an opportunity to succeed. So I love Corny. He was, although my first wedding failed, he was there at my first wedding. So I'm connected to him to the day I leave this world, and then my legacy will be connected to him.
I mean, of course. And Corny seems like somebody who he definitely knows the business. He's ran his own promotion.
Yes.
He's brought up so many young talents and made them into something different. It seems like he's one of those guys that if you are willing to learn and you keep bugging him, he's going to keep answering because he wants to make somebody good. He wants to show if this is important to you, it is just as important to me because nobody cares about your career more than you do. If you care enough, I'm going to care.
And here's another thing too is Cornette creates legacies for other people. You look at his run in Smoky Mountain, and then to go start OVW and put out the John Cenas and the Batistas and the Randy Ortons and a bunch of other guys who didn't get the notoriety. But the fact that Cornette is right there teaching him the psychology, the fundamentals of this business, that they would go on to make, huge impacts in the wrestling industry. I don't think people get caught up in Cornette's takes or his stance he takes on wrestling. And I think a lot of people get caught up hating the messenger or not listening to the message because the man knows wrestling. I don't care what generation it is. I don't care what day it is. He could speak on wrestling from the 30s, 40s on up to now. And his points are valid. And if you listen to him, the man will teach you how to perform in this industry.
Oh, most definitely. It seems like he is just an absolute encyclopedia. And I do love seeing anything that he kind of puts out. I don't listen to his podcast as much as I'd like to, but he seems to really be that wealth of knowledge. And beyond that, I do also want to ask you about TNA and your runs with them. How did you end up with NWA TNA in the first place?
In the first place, I was back in WWE in 2008. And I was there for about 9 months or so, and we weren't a good fit. And I was gonna go back to Japan because I had spent from 2002 to 2008 in Japan, and I was gonna go back. And then I got a call from Bob Ryder, and he was calling on behalf of Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff wanted me to come down to TNA, and just talked about the opportunity I could have there, and I wouldn't have any restrictions put on me, and I could just go be me. I could go wrestle and have some fun. And, I'm like, okay, I'll do this. And then I felt myself getting a little older, and I could feel myself slowing down in the ring. So then it was a way of transitioning over to the other side of the camera, being an agent and trying to learning that aspect of it. And that's where I really, really, really wanted to focus on, because your body can only last so long, but knock on wood, your mind can last for a long time. And I've been fortunate enough to be given so much wisdom and information about this business that now I felt like maybe now it's time for me to start teaching that next generation. And that's when I came back, and immediately Jeff put me with AJ Styles and was like, help this young man out, because he's going to be something. He's going to be the dude, and just let him know, teach him some of the things And that's where I started segueing into being that mentor like Ron Simmons had been for me. And that's the position I find myself in, 15 years later. I'm still teaching, and I'm still, backstage and helping put matches together. Whether it be in, Maple Leaf Pro or any of the independent companies I do side work for. I've really grown into the role of teacher and mentor and giving back the information that I got, because one day I won't open my eyes and all that information will go away, and I'd rather get it all out into the world instead of taking it with me.
Absolutely. And it's better to at least give it back to those coming up rather than to just keep it to yourself and be one of those guys who just doesn't care. But one quick sidebar I did want to ask you. So Japan, was that all Japan? And I think I read something that, didn't you have one of the last matches with Misawa before he unfortunately passed away?
I had one of the last matches that earlier that summer. Misawa, I was off the tour. He passed. Because I was trying to transition back to the States, and I was off the tour. I didn't go on that tour. He passed. But I had done stints in All Japan, New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah. So I've got to spend a lot of time in companies over there having great matches. Like I'm sometimes embarrassed by the names of the guys I've been in the ring with. And I don't say embarrassed in a bad way. Embarrassed in the embarrassment of riches of guys and top talent I've been in the ring with. And I put Masao right up there with one of the greatest dudes I've ever got to lace him up with. And man, was he fun to be in the ring with. To be in the ring with a Japanese legend where, he can walk on, he walks on water there. And to be in the ring and be feeling, I'm getting a little steam on him, and then to Japanese crowd to start rising up like, you're doing that to our Superman. We don't like that. And to feel it's an awesome feeling, man. It's awesome.
I hear that for sure. I mean, it's unfortunate that he had passed away and everything,
yes.
But man, it was something special. He really was something else. And I do love seeing the respect that you have for him, because he was one of those workers that I feel like when he stepped in the ring, it was just, all right, everybody, phones off, in the pocket, you're watching now, sort of thing,
Look, and it is sad that he is gone, but you know what? He went doing something he loved, and all he lived and breathed was wrestling. And when he stepped in the ring, there was no bigger perfectionist, no bigger, I'm not just doing this for me, I'm doing this for a nation. I'm doing it, for everyone who can't. Like that man had a work ethic. And even when he was at an advanced age, he was still out there just tearing it up and not caring. And you could see it. Another one is like, it's the Great Muta in the back. You could see them walking around slowly, hurting. And then you walk through the curtains, and it was like a whole different dude was there. Like they're moving around like they're 20 years old, because they had to perform for the people who love them the most. And man, I consider myself lucky to have been in the ring with them.
Oh, absolutely. I feel the same for anybody that was able to step in the ring with him. But I do want to ask one last question before I pass the mic back to Scully. And that is kind of a simple one. Just how did you like Japan? Because I loved it there. I just got to go recently.
It is probably in my top 3 or 4 countries in the world to visit. And it's one of those things that if I ever had to live out of the United States, it would be England or Japan is where I would live, because I have such an admiration for the society, for the way they handle themselves. I've never felt safer in my life than at 3:00 in the morning walking in Tokyo. So it's just an amazing country with an amazing history. The food is, if you can immerse yourself in the culture, you'll have the greatest time in the world in Japan. So much so that I've climbed Mount Fuji twice. I visited the temples in Kyoto and Nagoya and Tokyo and Sapporo, because I just loved being there and immersing myself in there. And it's one of my favorite places on this planet.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned the temples. I got to visit the one in Harajuku, I believe. And yeah, once again, breathtaking. Love being
amazing, isn't it? Just and see some of the castles like that, like Nagoya Castle and Tokyo Castle. Like, man, this is like, we have nothing like this in our country. Nothing like this. This is pretty cool.
Totally agree. And I don't want to keep hogging the mic all night. So before we go too crazy, Scully, why don't you go ahead and take over, buddy? I saw your mic was muted. I didn't want to, interfere if something else was going on.
That's right. You probably seen what I was doing. But
it's okay.
I was listening as well. So, but yeah, I'd just like to say I'm glad you said England, because obviously that's where I'm from. And for that reason, I'm glad you was the European champion as well.
England is my home away from home. I'm a Liverpool fan. Hopefully that doesn't offend people there. Yes, I know. Look, we're having an off year this year, so that should give you some solace. But England really embraced me when I wrapped myself in the European Championship character persona. And then years later, even going back now to this day, I'll be over there in 2 months. It's a very welcoming place for me, and it doesn't matter where I am in the UK. I get love and respect, and it's one of, again, if Japan was on a list of places I would be, England is right there. Just because I've grown to love the people there, and I love the fact that the English wrestling fans have just as much appreciation for wrestling as any country on this planet, if not more so, because for the longest time, they were not treated to the best quality of wrestling. And then over a 20-year period, some of the best workers in the world have come out of the UK. So, I mean, that's the appreciation that the wrestling fans there have. And I adore them. I love them. And I can't wait to get back over there.
I didn't know you as a football fan. I'm not going to say the S word because that annoys me. But
yes, I always call it English football when I'm talking to someone from England. It's footy.
Yeah. That's it. I support Aston Villa, so
it's okay. Not all of us can be perfect.
What is your have you ever been to a football game live?
I have been to Anfield. I try to go to Anfield at least twice a year. So when I go over in March, I'll try to pick up another one. But yes, I just if the Brits have a passion for wrestling, it is dwarfed by the passion for football.
Yes.
And I try to explain to people in this country, in America, we have sports teams that have been in countries or been in cities for 5, 10, 15 years. Imagine a club that is so ingrained in the city, it's literally part of the city, and they've been around for 120 years. When I put it in perspective for Americans, I say that the Brits were playing organized football when America was still trying to discover the West. And that's how ingrained footy is into the culture of England. And I've never seen such passion. I've never seen 80,000 people sing one song to one player and be crying as they're singing it. It is an amazing, and that's what I've been in. I've been in sporting events where I've been in the center of it and haven't felt that much passion as sitting in the cop, listening to Liverpool serenade Mo Salah. Or singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." Like there's a different level of passion, man. And I'm so glad that I got to experience it. And the fact that I now have that in my culture, because there's a lot of people that, you get to see it on TV. You really don't get to feel it. It's different being in a stadium and feeling it, feeling a stadium shake when a goal is scored and you feel this massive building shifting like it's an earthquake. It don't get any better than that.
Yeah,
yes.
I agree. It is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll be going tomorrow. We're playing Liverpool's rivals Everton tomorrow, so that should be
go kick their tails and stomp their heads in, please.
We normally have quite a good record against them, so
please do it more, because they're pesky little bunch. Like they'll pull you to a draw every now and then, and you won't wonder you'll be like, how'd that happen? We're better than them, and how'd that happen? So please go kick your teeth in for me.
We will try.
That's pretty awesome, though, to see even just the connection just made between you two there. And that is something nice to see just from simple things like football. And I do agree, being in places like England and Japan, those are just incredible to be in, because I'll be honest, Japan, amazing. England, I've enjoyed my time here. I've been here for about 7 years now. And this has been an insane life that I wouldn't have ever expected.
Wrestle Magic.
So, if you have any kind of recommendation for the audience, whether it be movies, TV shows, video games, dog breeds, cat breeds, even a favorite team of any sort, what would you recommend the audience at least try once?
So one of my favorite shows is on Apple TV, and I'm not sure how it plays in England, but it's on Apple TV, and it's called Foundation. And it is the story of the Cleonic dynasty, 3 clones that rule for hundreds of years. And it is it's a 1,000-year story of the Foundation trying to take down the dynasty. And I'm a sci-fi guy, and it's amazing. Lee Priest is the main actor in it, and it is phenomenal. So if you get it, Foundation on Apple TV, just sit. It's about as detailed as Game of Thrones. That's how big this empire is. And it takes place on a planet far, far away in a time in the future. And it's pretty awesome.
That sounds really cool. And I do want to give that a watch. And so my next question, this is one of the last things that I always like to ask before we, cut off and everything. So I like to ask this to every single guest because it's something that it does provoke a lot of thought. But if you could go back in time to, let's say, a few days before you really start training, before you entered into backyard wrestling and everything, and give yourself any sort of advice when maybe you were just thinking about it, what would you tell yourself?
It would be listen. Don't waste time thinking you know everything. Listen to those people who have been there before you. They're not just old, they're experienced and they know what's going on. They've been there and done that. And when we're younger, we have this I know everything attitude. And by the time you get around to listening to those who have been there, you've wasted so much time. So I would tell myself, shut up, open your ears, open your eyes, and listen to those people who have done it before, and they'll walk you down the path of success.
Absolutely. I've definitely heard that a time or two because, God, we don't realize that we do not know anything until it's too late, usually. Or everything.
Youth is wasted on the young. When we have the youth to do it all, we don't have the experience. By the time we get the experience, our bodies have slowed down. So if I could have that information 20 years earlier, oh my goodness, we would wreck this world.
They say knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. It's the only power they can never take away from you. So yes, I would have listened a lot closer and a lot more detailed, and not just think they were old guys telling me stories.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for being on the show, Mr. D'Lo Brown. So how can the fans and anybody that wants to try to reach you and book you, how can they reach you?
You can always get me on X at D'Lo Brown 75. You can get me on Instagram at D'Lo Brown LFC. You know what the LFC is for. And I'm always out. I love doing seminars. I love doing TED Talks with young wrestlers. And I just love giving back to this industry because I want to give back to the industry that gave me so much. And it's my way of trying to pay back for giving me a life that I never could have imagined or dreamt of. When I first turned on wrestling at 9 or 10 years old, I could never imagine this would be the way it turned out. So it is my duty to give back to this industry that's given to me.
Absolutely. So, all right, final question. This is something I also ask every guest. So if you could book yourself in a dream match, you're back in your prime and you can face anybody from their prime from history or even an up-and-comer that you see today, who are you picking and what match are you picking? You can choose a gimmick match if you like.
Man, I've been asked this question several times before. I can tell you I've never wrestled Shawn Michaels, so that would be on my bucket list. But if I could take young me, I would young me, Roman Reigns, WrestleMania main event. Let's go. Let's go. Let's have some fun. Let's just go turn the lights out for 45 minutes and have some fun.
That does sound pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. I would actually pay to see that. No joke.
I would have a lot of fun in that because that would be to have somebody. So, and I want heel Roman Reigns. I want the head of the bloodline Roman Reigns, the one Roman Reigns, that dude, because he was a heel. So I want that dude.
And I want to see a sky eye and a frog.
You would see a sky high and a frog splash. Trust me on that one.
And make sure you put your vest on as well.
Yeah, the best has to be there because we'd have the battle of vests. He'd have his shield vest on and I'd have mine on. So we're going.
Heck yeah. Well, all right. So before we close out, Scully, do you have any recommendations for the audience?
The recommendation I'm going to say is only because I watched it last night because I didn't really think of it, to be honest. But the film I watched last night, you might have seen it, you might have not. It's quite old now, 2009. It sounds old when you think of what year it is now. But it stars Michael Caine, Plan B, Ben Drew. It's an English film and it's called Harry Brown. I don't know if any of you have seen that film.
I'm getting my phone notes out right now. My phone notes are coming out because I'm going to check this out.
So it's got quite a decent cast. Like I said, Michael Caine's the lead. And basically his friend, who is a filler fan in real life, David Bradley, the actor, he basically, you got a bunch of youngsters, Plan B being the leader, like basically destroying the thing, terrorizing the neighborhood, selling drugs, stealing drugs, beating up people for no reason. And then they kill his friend. And because he was in the military, he takes over basically. So,
Okay.
That might be on my my watch list for tonight, because I've got some American football to watch in a little bit. It's on behind me probably, and then after that, then I will dive into. I have a few hours tonight, so I might have to watch it.
Heck yeah, that's pretty cool. And Scully, where can the fans reach you?
So yeah, I do have my own accounts, but I always just pick up the Wrestle Magic accounts because I'm doing the socials on there. So please find us at Wrestle Magic Pod, and we're on Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. And yeah, I do sometimes post stuff on there as well.
All right, sounds good, buddy. So close out the show. My recommendation for this week, you guys, a little bit different. So I'm actually going to recommend Norwich Millennium Library, because weirdly enough, I went in there, I found a picture of my grandfather inside of a book.
Whoa,
weirdest thing possible.
wow.
Great grandfather from World War II.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, man. I'm still kind of shocked by it, but yeah. So highly recommend for anybody, go to your local libraries, guys. You never know what you could find in there. Just search around for a while, and yeah, if you know enough information, you can find some stuff that you maybe weren't looking for. And then told the librarians up front, they found his draft card somehow. I have no clue how, but yeah, it's kind of insane what they had there.
It's just amazing when you're in a country that's 1,000 years old and the stuff you can find.
Exactly, because grandfather served over here, but yeah, here's his draft card or a photocopy of it. So,
wow.
Yeah, wild. But yeah, so highly recommend anybody. Just check out a library once in a while, guys. You never know what you're going to find there. It could be something good. But with that, you guys know how I always end the show. You can find me on Twitter at MaintenanceMav, Twitter X, whatever you want to call it. And as I always end the show, do something nice for somebody out there. You guys never know who needs it. People are going through stuff all the time. Somebody needs a hug. Somebody needs groceries. Somebody needs, just anything. So help out your neighbor. Jump in when you can. And with that, in the words of my buddy Memphis Mark, we're out.
Wrestle Magic.